Hey everybody, this is Mike with BuzzTox, and we're doing a reaction review to episode 2 of HBO's Watchmen. The episode shows the fallout of the death of Chief Crawford and the continued exploration of understanding Angela Abar, our main protagonist. In this episode, we learn of Angela's traumatic past, being a victim of the White Knight event, and that traumatic event has left her with a loss of self. She's filled with anger and doesn't know how to properly deal with it. And the subsequent adoption of the Sister Knight persona has further separated her from her past self. That event has forever changed her. We learn of her fostering the children of her deceased partner who was killed on the White Knight, and the concern her husband has for her mental well-being as well as the safety of their family. In the Hooded Justice grocery store robbery scene, we are actually given a look into Angela's character. He's talking about Angela when he says he looked into a mirror and saw a stranger looking back at him, and that his built-up anger needed some sort of outlet in violence. Angela's inner conflict in this episode is demonstrated in her being the voice of reason within the police, stating that violence was unnecessary in the mass arrests at Nixonville, but at the same time, we see her viciously assaulting a member of that community. We see her going alone in her investigation of the death of the chief rather than working with her co-workers. She's intrigued by Reeves so much that when he says he strung up the chief, she doesn't arrest him on the spot, but instead she questions him at her bakery hideout. And although we see her in this inner conflict, riding a line between good and bad, leaning more towards bad in my opinion thus far, we learn about her absolutist view of the world when she's speaking to her child. She says she sees the world in black and white, good and evil, but the continued theme of the show will be an exploration into the shades of gray which exist in this world. With the chief, he still remains a mystery. Angela finds the KKK robes in his closet, but was he a member? Maybe it was his grandfather's robes. We saw a photo of him also being a sheriff in the last episode. Was he in conflict with his own family's dark past and somehow kept this as a memento, trying to deal with it in his mind? Reeves said he had skeletons in his closet, but that he was the one who strung him up. But who killed him, and why? Did the chief orchestrate the White Knight event? Or was he sincere in the hospital scene when he blamed himself for it? We see a continued exploration into police brutality in this episode, as they've lost their leadership, and Red Scare is now leading the police mob and looking for justice by any means necessary. And what is going on with Adrian Veit in this? I love these scenes. We don't learn much about Veit's plans in this episode, but we do learn a lot about Dr. Manhattan. We learn about the transformation of John Osterman into Dr. Manhattan via a play by Veit and his clone servants, or android servants. We were also given some exposition on Dr. Manhattan's powers by Reeves earlier in the show, explaining what he can do. He can be huge, he can change his shape, he can be two places at once. Am I the only one who thinks that Reeves, the old man, is going to turn out to be Hooded Justice? Anyway, back to the Veit storyline. I assume it wasn't going to be a literal play that Veit was going to put on, but that he was referring to a master plan that he had in 5 acts in the previous episode. The literal putting on of a play, it doesn't seem to have much rational sense to it thus far, and this fanciful playtime he's having with the clones is seemingly counter to the Adrian Veit character in the comics. He was more Vulcan in personality, he was cold and calculating. So what's Veit's actual plan? It's been a year since the last scenes with him, and not much has seemingly happened. He's stockpiling these clone or android corpses in the basement and continuing to improve on them with each play that he puts on. In this storyline, I'm thinking that Mr. Phillips might actually be a clone of John Osterman, and that Veit might recreate the accident which created Dr. Manhattan, to somehow save the world by having Dr. Manhattan's powers. Things I enjoyed in this episode: the superhero tech we see from the comic has become more widespread in this universe. We saw this in Archie, the Night Owl ship, in the last episode, and in this one we see Angela wearing Night Owl tech glasses, and the reporters somehow have access to Mothman tech, a shout out to Mothman from the comics. and are able to fly around. I enjoyed how this alternate universe is one which we could actually see happening, with the extremely long disclaimers at the beginning of the American hero story, and the slightly futuristic cultural center with its DNA application process to receive reparations, or as they call it, Redfordations, after the Democratic Party has led the US since the 1980s in this universe. I love how they're going to use this American hero story to flesh out the backstory of the Watchmen universe, and the fact that it will be a story within a story, and it will allow them to have liberty to do things which wouldn't fit well within the framework of the main narrative. It permits pure spectacle and corny dialogue for the audience's enjoyment. There's a ton of Easter eggs in this episode from the comic, which we'll get into in another video, but keep watching us here at BuzzTox, and we'll have episode 3 up for you soon. Take care.